Hello everybody, welcome back to this year tropical update for August 29th. Today we're looking at the same four areas. I'm not going to run the animation on this because it's very glitchy and we wouldn't want to have, an ugly looking beginning to the stream here, or video here. Now, two areas of interest as we have been mentioning, two invests as we have been mentioning. Nothing too new or crazy with anything. So let's get into it. You guys know the deal. Area of interest in the Caribbean, area of interest off the coast of Africa, an invest in the Central Atlantic, and an invest 600 miles to the east of Bermuda, which will not affect land. So let's begin first with the area of interest. You saw that glitchiness there. Portions of the Yucatan could be impacted by this system, but it's looking less likely to develop as we move on with time. 10% chance formation within 5 days. Basically call it nothing. Could see something in the Pacific out of it, but not really a huge concern at the moment. Here's 92L located over the Northern Atlantic. As we can see, continuous convection coming out of the naked swirl of that tropical cyclone, the invest low pressure system. But it's really nothing too crazy. Winds aren't that crazy. Pressure isn't that crazy. And obviously that convection isn't going around that center. Hurricane Center saying a 10% chance formation within the next 5 days. Not a lot of model support with this one. Invest 91L also looking fairly decent today. Again, we have that little bit of rotation. The convection, as we see at the very end of that loop, may be firing near that center of the storm, which could be pivotal in the development of this system into a tropical cyclone. But still, those larger amounts of convection offset to the southwest and northeast, respectively, is not helpful for this thing to be classified as a tropical cyclone. But nonetheless, is something we should take note of. Also, that should say August 29th at the bottom corner there. National Hurricane Center saying an 80% chance of formation within the next 5 days. We still want to keep an eye on portions of the Leeward Islands and Virgin Islands, as if it moves towards the bottom end of that hatched area, we could see some extraneous impacts to those areas. Also going to keep an eye on this one towards Bermuda, maybe the Bahamas as well, due to the potential path that this storm follows. I'll talk more about that once we get to the models here shortly. So keep an eye on this one. Behind that, another area of interest, keep an eye over in Cabo Verde. Other than that, it's going to turn out to sea and not be impacting land at all. 30% chance of formation within the next 5 days if it develops, which is kind of moderately likely. Here's the impact map that I make. As you see, a lot less blue on the map than yesterday. Not a whole lot of concerning areas within the next 7 days, but after that, like I said, the Bahamas might want to keep an eye on things. Bermuda wants to keep an eye on things. And again, if one of these storms gets going or changes paths somewhat, we could see a lot more land areas in play. Now, obviously, that's not the area of interest off the coast of Africa or the area of interest in the Northern Atlantic, or the Invest 92L over the Northern Atlantic, but Invest 91 and that other area of interest, if they form, could be interesting. Here's the European model. That Caribbean area of interest, the only way it's going to form is if it makes it to the Pacific, according to the European ensembles. In the short term, there's a possibility for a subtropical cyclone off the coast of the United States. That is within the next 2 days or so. If it does develop, again, you see a few of the ensembles hinting at that possibility. Not a huge possibility. That's why the Hurricane Center hasn't said anything about it. 92L, a little bit of model support, not a lot. 91L going to be making its way towards the Bahamas. And again, I would expect for me to say tropical alert in effect for the Bahamas tomorrow if models hold on this direction with the storm making its way to the Bahamas and then turning out to sea. As we'll see in the GFS here shortly, the turnout to sea happens sooner than this. The area of interest over the west coast of Africa, not really expected to develop on this model. And the tropical way behind it has a little model support with it. Here's the GFS, as I mentioned. It has the storm Invest 91L much further to the north than the previous one, perhaps putting Bermuda at a greater risk, but the Bahamas at lesser risk before turning out to sea. A lot more model support for 92L. Again, decreasing support for that area of interest in the Caribbean. Not hugely concerned about it, to be honest with you. Decent amount of model support, and if it does develop, seems to be a tropical storm or potentially even a hurricane. So there's that going for the area of interest off the west coast of Africa. and then another tropical wave following behind. Not a whole lot of model support from the GFS at this point in time. So again, we're watching all 4 of those areas. Here's the glitchy animation. And so I'll try to wrap this up here, but still, anybody, it's the tropics, it's peak season, so keep an eye on everything. That's all for today. The memorial of the beheading of St. John the Baptist in Columbus. Chris Info, Catholic Media.